Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Car training tonight.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Marianne. Hi, Lisa. How are you all?
Good, good, good.
Good.
Really good.
Good. It's been a weird, super weird week. Had two big deaths in our little community and it's kind of just rocked me. So I apologize. I found out last Monday, really late at night that this boy from my son's swim team died. And then I found out my neighbor was going through his final days of his cancer journey and he ended up dying a few days later. So I've just been like in the helper mode. We're just making meals and bringing stuff, and so my business posting has not been great this week. So forgive me. I hope to get the motivation back. Death is just heavy. So anyway, how are you guys?
Good.
Good.
Doing good. I finished my 75-hour aromatherapy course.
That is celebration news. Congratulations. That's exciting. I hope I can say that soon.
Oh, I'm so glad to get that one off my plate.
Oh gosh, that's awesome.
Now I can renew all my licenses and all that good stuff too, because
Good.
that's that step. So,
Yeah, that's a good step.
mhm.
That Marianne comes after you become a teacher. So you can always take the class if you want to, but when you're a teacher, you have to take this class within like 2 or 3 years becoming, or maybe it's when you're C or a FC CRTS. I can't remember, but you don't have to worry about that.
No.
So
It's great.
okay. I know quite a few people are unable to make it tonight. I was just gonna jump on Facebook really fast and check in. Um, but I am gonna record this
Good.
for people who cannot make it. Um, and I don't have a PowerPoint tonight. I did not get that finished. But it's okay because the big thing I want you guys to look at is in your book. We really need to just look at the book. And let me see if there's another person who uh someone else messaged me and I couldn't make it. So that's fine. So in our notes and in our book, I'm just gonna go ahead and get started unless anyone has any questions, or if you guys have you read the section about part two, Marianne?
No, I
Okay,
know.
it's okay. That's okay. We will just check on some pages tonight. So if you want to look here and read this, it'll be good. Um, it's not going to be a super long video because I think we should probably do this in a couple of parts, or maybe just have like a recap video next week or something, and go over it a little bit more, and we'll continue on with this. But I think my main goal after rereading this again was like, wow, anyone can literally use Vitaflex. You can teach it to children. It's free. It's very fast and effective. There's no side effects whatsoever. People don't become nauseous or sick or overdose with drugs when you use this. It doesn't cause any ill side effects or ill effects. And the best part about this is that we have our fingers. All we need to know is how to do it. And when you have the oils, it's great. But sometimes, you run out of the house and you start to feel nauseous, or you get a headache, or you've been, doused with someone's perfume or cigarette smoke, or you just you need help in a moment. And all you have to do is remember, okay, these are the points where this is going to help me at. And you don't even really need oils. It's more effective with oils, but you can do it without it. So I love this section. I'm so glad I reread it. And I'm really, I'm eager to not only encourage my students and, Elisa's students who are in this group now too, and any care student, but I'm really eager to help them teach it to their people, because yes, we know it, but when you start showing other people that you can do this too, it then ignites the Young Living side of your business, and it ignites the ability to say, okay, you're now your own advocate. You do not have to go anywhere else to find treatment or care. In here, he talks about right on page, right in the very beginning section of this, how it's just, it eliminates so much of the unnecessary medical model. And that to me is what I think prevention and first aid and homeopathic treatment and alternative care is all about, is eliminating the medical model, which we know can cause errors and it can cause problems and it can cause bigger issues than we even went in for. And for things that have been problematic in your life, you can be the guinea pig, you can be the person who tries it out. And for my own self, my husband has, like, through Atlas, Max, and then Ava. And then when I was going through my miscarriage too, Andrew, I taught it to him all those years ago, like 9 years ago now. And every time I'm sick, which I don't get sick very often, but every time I'm ill, he's like, okay, I know exactly what point to do. Can you just tell me which oil again? And he is so adamant that I've got to be the one that stays healthy. So he will jump up and just go to it and help me. And he knows when I'm not able to, when I'm like having indigestion or irritation in my tummy, it's just great to have people on your team to know the tools and what to do. So that's the section of this book. It begins on page 39. You can go ahead and turn to page 39, the Vitaflex section. And he talks briefly about what it is. And it's just basically, if you think of your body like a computer, and our computer has a brain, and our inner workings are all controlled by that brain. And if something goes wrong with one of the signals from the brain to the body part, we need to reboot it. And the best way to do that is by simply introducing new electrical voltage into that body stream, that stream of electricity. And that's what we do with our fingertips. We put the pressure, we increase the pressure, and then we turn off the pressure and electricity by those insulators. And that sends that electrical impulse directly into the body right where it is. So technically, you could do Vitaflex anywhere on the body. You could do it and make sure it happens very, very quickly in a specific spot. But if you don't know where to put it and you're ill and you're not feeling well, you can simply just do it on location. Okay. So maybe you have tooth pain and jaw pain. You could literally just Vitaflex across the jaw on the outside of the mouth and increase the voltage, increase the energy right there where it is. Compared to the similar thing that we know as reflexology, and in that, which uses acupuncture and things like that, there's over 5,000 points with Vitaflexing. We know that to be true, whereas acupuncture only has about 360 points that we can be using with those tiny little needles. And you need a needle person to do it. You need a doctor of acupuncture to do that. So I love it. I just love that we can do this on our own. What it is, Vitaflex is, it's an amazing superseding system, and in the mind, which is our reflex system. It's not generally recognized by our orthodox medicine. So when you go to the doctor, there's not going to be a doctor of reflexology, because there's no reflexology system that they talk about, or the reflex system. But we know it to be true. The Asian culture knows it to be true. This guy from Tibet knew it to be true, and we just have to bring that out of the forgotten things. And the other thing he talks about is that we're meant to heal, and our bodies were already given the tools to heal. And so the coolest part about that is that we can literally say, okay, if my body knew how to be created and it was created in perfection, then we can also heal this body in perfection as well. So yeah, that's what it is. I wrote a couple notes down. The internal controls. These are vibrational energy points. The vibrational energy is exactly how our heart works. Our heart is made up of frequency. That's how you can see your heartbeat on a external monitor. It's frequency. And we use that same vibrational energy that we see on that monitor through our fingertips to heal our cells and our nerves and our organs and our body systems. It can be used to relieve pain. It can be used to remove symptoms. One thing that I find interesting is that with homeopathy, hey Pam, with homeopathy, you have to be so knowledgeable on what the symptoms are for homeopathy. You can't just go and say, oh, I'm going to take belladonna and I'm going to use belladonna for this, this, and this. If you don't know what caused the fever for belladonna, then you could be causing technically harm. Like the homeopathic coaches that I've spoken with, they're very scared of giving any advice because they don't want to give you the wrong antidote or the wrong treatment. Whereas with Vitaflex, if you have a symptom, we're going to go and treat that symptom, even if we don't know what the source of the problem is. So it's okay to not know exactly what's causing it, but let's get relief from the symptom as soon as possible so that we feel better, so that we're not stuck in that sick mindset. That's I'm not well. I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling injured. I'm feeling under the weather. Okay. All right, so Pam, we're just beginning chapter 2 on Vitaflex, and I'm just going over the basic beginning portion of this chapter about what Vitaflex is. And then we're going to go over a little bit more on what the notes have versus what the book has and how they differ and how you can utilize the book in your practice. Okay, so I just said it's internal control is vibrational energy used to heal, relieve pain. It can be for tension. It can be, so a lot of times if you think about it, emotional tension, we've talked a lot about our emotions and how we hold it in our body. If we have emotional tension, it can store up in our neck, it can store in our other muscles, it can store in our heart, in our lungs, our liver. That tension of the emotion can be relieved by using our fingertips and doing Vitaflex, which is super cool. It can relieve congestion. So not only the congestion that you get in your sinuses, but also the congestion that can happen in your liver, in your lungs, in your colon, all that kind of thing. And it can also treat maladjustments or the spinal adjustments. Do any of you guys go to a chiropractor? Or haven't heard of a chiropractor? So they literally adjust your spine by manipulating those bones back into place. We can do it on our body. We can do it on ourselves, on our hands and on our feet. So I've really not even needed to use a chiropractor because of having so much Vitaflex done on me, and now I know how to do it on myself. So it's just such a shift. You become your own advocate. You become so empowered to do what you need to do for your own body. It controls the entire body and mind. The Vitaflex is like a computer that innately works. So even if we are not able to think of Vitaflexing, our body just knows naturally how to work and it knows naturally how to heal. So when we utilize these tools that naturally heal it, we can get back to our natural state of health very quickly. It's like a divine intelligence. So our life force for a healing energy is our body. We have that divine intelligence. That's what God gave us when he created us. Okay. And then each time we use the control points and each time they are pressed, a spark of energy is released to the exact point. So we know that pad, we do pad, tip, nail directly onto that spot. So my son broke his finger again, and it's right on the side. And unfortunately, they didn't take a repeat x-ray, but he just kept doing Vitaflexing over and over and over and over. And he's like, I think my finger feels like magnetized. He was like trying to explain this, like the feeling he was having. I was like, there's probably just so much energy going there from doing that repeat Vitaflex. But the amount of swelling that has gone down in the last week when I started telling him to do the Vitaflexing on top of the other protocols is just incredible. I can't even believe it. So I'm excited to see the x-ray and how it went back together. Hey Karen, good to see you.
Hi. Hi, thank you.
Glad you're here. We're just talking through this first part of the chapter and basically saying what Vitaflex is a little bit more than what the notes have. The Vitaflex notes from Care are very sparse because I think it talks so much about how the body is divinely created, and I don't know, I don't actually know why, it's very sparse, but we're going more into what the book has here in the first couple of pages. So only necessary changes are made. So we are never going to overdo it with Vitaflex, which is another really cool thing. No destructive side effects, only positive and direct healing takes place. The other positives that I have found with this, and which is why I really think it's important to share this with your clients, to share this with your family, your friends, is that there's no need for costly tests, no need for diagnoses or other or observational things like sitting and waiting. Okay, we're going to wait it out, or we're going to make sure that, like, you have to go back and get labs in 6 months. You can't just go and check on it today. Some doctors are so worried about that. It works in minutes, and it's very, very low cost because it's literally free. And if you don't have oils, you can do it without the oils as well. The other thing they don't really mention in the care notes is that this technique, let's go to page 41. It talks about under the bolded section where it says Vitaflex simply means vitality through the reflexes. It says then it's applied in various key points all over the body by a pressure with a pull of the finger and a slight twist of the wrist. So he's talking about that pad tip nail movement. And I'm not sure if David and Lee brought that pad tip nail to the table or if Gary Young did. But they also call it a pipe wrench motion. So if you put your hand out and you practice it, it's like you're kind of like doing this type of motion. You're trying to tighten a wrench or like tighten a faucet. And when you have that understanding, it's not really pad tip nail, it's twisting, twisting, twisting. Okay, so we don't want to stay too long on the pad because we're not trying to give heavy pressure. We don't want to stay too long on the tip because we're not trying to do very, that pressurized motion. They actually say we don't want a lot of pressure, but we want to get to that flipping, okay, that pipe wrenching, twisting motion. Okay, so that was kind of something interesting that was in this book that wasn't really talked about in the notes. It's not really described like that in the notes very well. Any questions on this so far? Just new, a little bit new. Okay. The other thing they talk about, it's not jerky. It's not a jerky motion. So we want it to be smooth. We want it to be rhythmic. We want it to be calming. When you think about feather stroking, if you get your rhythm going, it feels very calming and relaxing. But if you feel someone giving you a raindrop and their feather stroking is like, or like very awkward and just not comfortable, your body is not going to calm down into a state where it can heal. So we want that to be the same for Vitaflexing. We want it to be very calm and smooth and kind of fast, but not too fast. We want it to be very rhythmic. It should be, not jerky, not pressurized and jerky. He says it's a very fast system. One will never stay more than a moment on any point, thus preventing unnecessary irritations. Do not rub any point, as this rubbing can do a lot of damage to the tissue, which it's so strange because people pay lots of money to get hours of massage work, right? So sometimes when you have tissue injury or disease going on in the body, you don't want to damage the body further. You actually just want to bring more energy to it. Okay. Any questions about that? I know it's a new topic. There's these little crystals in there on the bottom of page 41. He talks about we're not attempting to crush crystals, which may or may not be there. Well, we use the pipe wrench technique, a pressure and a release. As the progress continues on to other parts, the hand moves smoothly and rhythmically without jerks and jabs. Do not jerk in doing any of the reflex work at any time. Okay. So the other thing he brings up is that we have a specific set. We teach 13 protocols in our Vitaflex notes. We have 12 different body systems plus our sensory system. So not all of those are discussed in our notes. the body systems. There's not a specific one for each one. And they have way more reflex points than just the 12 body systems that we have. But sometimes you might have something going on in your throat, and it might be strep throat related or an infection related, and you also have your thyroid there. So doesn't mean that your thyroid is going to get harmed if you're doing a technique on your throat area. Okay, that's one thing that you shouldn't worry about. You shouldn't worry about damaging or harming or injuring or anything like that with a different protocol, because you have multiple organs or body systems in that same area. Let's go see here. All right. It can be a specific, it must be specific, it must be exact. But then later on, it talks about you can actually do it on the totally opposite arm. If you have a cast on your arm, you could use your other arm to do the Vitaflexing on, and it will work the same way. So with Xander having his finger injured, for the first few weeks, he wasn't wanting anything to be touched because it was really painful. So I would just do the work on his finger. So that's coming into this next section. We'll talk about in one second. But the other thing is, what about if your people don't really like the way it feels? So I have a few kiddos in my house that find it very ticklish, and they find it uncomfortable, and they're just, I want to do it before they go to bed. So sometimes I don't want to get them riled back up. So it says you can even leave socks on. You don't have to remove any clothing. You can actually do it on top of clothing, which is interesting because we want that digital electrical stimulation. We want the pressure from our skin, but also we might just be getting the pressure from the pressure, not necessarily the skin to skin touch. Okay. So pressure in and of itself brings electrical energy to the body. And then you increase the pressure by going up on the tip, and then you release the pressure by doing the nail. So even on top of clothing, even if people don't want their clothes taken off, which is really great when you're doing some of these practicums, which, we really want to get to as much skin as possible, but don't prevent yourself from practicing if people are just saying they're uncomfortable by taking their clothes off. Or maybe their pant legs are too tight, or maybe they don't want to take their pants off or something like that for the shins and the lower back and stuff like that. So there's so much here that I really enjoy about this book that gives you options and detailed information on how to just work through it, on how to just get the application onto the body. Okay. I really wanted to say this out loud because it was kind of giving me a lot of hope. It says, no piece of machinery. I'm on page 42. It's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs down. No piece of machinery made by man, no matter how wonderful it is, can compare with the mechanism that the Creator gave us in this beautiful body of ours. As he gave us this body, he also gave us a complete system of controls that make it possible to keep the body in perfect running order. If we follow the rules, if we become sick to the same extent to which we ignore these rules. Okay, so we have something now that we can utilize instead of just ignoring when we have symptoms. Okay. It says the stimulation is applied from the outside, but remember the healing processes take place on the inside. Okay. Here on page 42, now going into different parts, it says there's 7 or more control points for each affected body part. These points may be used as often as desired, as long as the skin or flesh is not injured. They may be used several times a day as needed to remove pain and to prompt the body to heal itself. The reflex system stimulates or depresses only to a normal condition. There are no dangerous side effects. Okay, so that was page 42. All right, now let's talk about this dimension stuff. Have any of you ever taken a Reiki class or heard about Reiki in any way? Okay, so in Reiki, they talk about distance work where you can literally do energy work when you're not even by people. You can just practice it on yourself, and you can be thinking and honoring the person that you want to support. You get permission first. So one of the dimensions in that is kind of like this. In my mind, I think of it like prayer. I think of it just like prayer. I don't think of it in a weird gloomy, dark, scary way. So when you're reading through this, think of it as if I have the intention that I may be praying and wanting my friend, my family member, my daughter, my son, my mother to heal. And I'm going to think about the body part in which is injured or affected. And I'm going to envision me doing the work on that person while I might be doing the work on myself. So helping myself to think of all those details. Okay, the arm is broken. I'm going to go directly down my arm. And I'm just going to Vitaflex my arm. And I'm just going to pray that my work on myself can help that person's arm heal. Okay. It's a lot like prayer for me. If that doesn't apply to you and you don't like that aspect, just leave it. You don't have to utilize it. But it's nice that our intention is brought up in here. Our desire to help others doesn't have to be limited by the work in the four corners of our home or in the four corners of our office. You can help someone all the way across the country, which is really cool. The first dimension, though, is just basically our body being displayed on our hands and our feet. Okay, our hands and our feet. So let's turn to page 43. It says first dimension of Vitaflex. We can work these 4 dimensions, 3 of which are literal geographical dimensions. 1 dimension goes up and down from head to toe in reverse, other straight across from side to side, and the third straight through from front to back. Each one works independently, yet all 4 dimensions work together for complete action. So that first dimension, as you look at the bottom of the feet, picture both as representing the body from the hips up. This is what we're familiar with in our care class notes, okay? So if you look here, we have a set of feet in our book. I really like the way this book is set out with these pictures. So my thought is I'm probably going to deconstruct a book and make some really flat copies. This book got waterlogged. My kid dropped it in the bathtub when I was reading it one night. So some of the pages are gross, but this one's not. So I might just create some good images, get it the copyright, everything cleared out so we can have it. But this image is really nice. It's very crystal clear on what it looks like. It shows all the details, and it actually clarifies on where exactly the spine is. Okay, it shows us that the spine is in that little arch area. When we teach Vitaflexing up the feet, we tend to start a little bit lower, but it makes me feel excited that the whole spine is all within that arch area. Okay, so whatever you choose to do, you can keep it how it is, but it's a nice little foot chart. This is the first dimension. Same thing with the hands, which is on the previous page. Our care notes, our hands are the opposite, and it's a little bit hard to do the care notes when you're doing it on the hands because it is opposite. So if you ever have questions on how the hands look, rather than have them facing up like this in the notes, these have them facing forward. So you can see that. Okay, so that's the first dimension. And also it talks about, off the page. It talks about for a sprained or injured ankle, relief is found by working on the corresponding part on the wrist of the same side. So let's say somebody hurt their wrist, you would be able to do that same side of the body on the ankle because that joint is similar on the upper and lower part of the body. Okay, so this is up and down, hands and feet, that kind of thing. Does that make sense to you guys? Hopefully. Okay, and then it says cramps or pain on the calf of the leg are relieved by working it on the forearm. So see how the arms and legs relate, the hands and feet correlate. That's how it's gonna go. Okay, then we have the second dimension. This is straight across. So this is pain in one ankle might be relieved by the reflexes in the opposite ankle. So would I only do the opposite ankle? No, I would do the injured ankle for sure. I would probably do that wrist. I would probably do the opposite ankle. And why not just do the other wrist to make everything balanced? Okay, so it's really nice to be able to have options, especially if people have injured skin. Like it talked about, you don't want to be trying to damage the skin further. I had one time somebody had a burn and they weren't able to be touched on that foot, and they just didn't want it done, so we did the hands and that was okay. Okay, then the third dimension is front and back. So say I have a headache in the front of my head. it might be relieved by using the same exact spot, Vitaflexing the same exact spot on the back of the head. Okay. So if you have injury on the front half of the body, it might work to go to the back half. Okay. Abdomen, low back, things like that. Because remember, the spine, those nerves, they wrap around from the back all the way to the front. Okay. And then that fourth dimension on the next page talks about there's but one body, but it says there is but one body and but one spirit. We are all an extension or expression of the divine. We're all connected together and visible only through the spiritual sight. So this one says an operator works on his or her own hip with the Vitaflex principle. While doing this, he visualizes himself as actually working on the person. They do this with, it says here, provided that your desire to heal is sincere and completely honest. And also, just making sure that you feel comfortable with it. So if that's not something that you want to do, but a lot of times people will, like once they know, like with Reiki, I took a class, I'll just give you my example on that. But then people in that same class would be like, hey, can you send me Reiki? And it didn't always feel genuine. It didn't feel like something that I felt comfortable doing. So it has to be kind of reciprocated. Otherwise, your energy is not going to be put to good use. So this is just one way that you can share in those fourth dimensions. Okay. Any questions about those? Kind of interesting. Anyone have somebody that they're thinking of that they might not be able to work on a body part, but you could use the opposite side or the up and down side? Anyone have amputee family members or people who have injuries that they're currently working with? That's okay. Just trying to make conversation. I've been talking.
Oh, yes. My daughter had surgery on her thumb and it was about an inch long right here. So she can't, it's just continuing to heal. The stitches are out and those things. And she's going to a physical therapist. So a good example of that is that physical therapist is working on scar tissue, but she's working because it was part of the tendon had to be removed here. So she's working on getting her back full range of motion and that kind of thing. But she used one of the devices that they usually use to break up scar tissue, but it really caused a big blister here while she was working on it because she was just pressing too hard. And the device was a typical scar tissue device. And we know lots of different ways you can work on scar tissue, but so anyway, so I've been helping my daughter figure out how to work this without getting that. The physical therapist felt terrible that there was a blister formed as she was working on it because that new skin is so tender. So we've been working on other ways to help get that range of motion back into the surgical area.
That's great. Yeah.
It was, but that's where you get the typical physical therapy with a person who knows a lot, but then creates a result that wasn't profitable. It wasn't good because it caused further injury to the skin.
Right.
So this would be, is so much better, even if you added the oil frankincense or something like that for scar tissue.
Right.
Or a dab of castor oil with frankincense would, so we're educating this physical therapist as well. It's like, don't do that again.
Yes. Yeah. That would be
So-
really cool. Did she happen to have any other issues because the thumb is so important to our hand, but also because the reflex, this is kind of off topic, but did you notice if she had any other issues like in her neck or back or any irritation or stiffness or pain that could be reflexed in the opposite way?
Well, we feel like this whole syndrome came about as a result of a medication that she was taking.
Oh gosh, okay.
So this right here, was a giant cell tumor, which are all, it's non-cancerous. It was just all of a sudden it started growing and it got really big. But she also has one under her right toe as well. So these giant cell tumors are showing up where they've never have ever before as
Mm,
a result of a medication, which isn't listed as a side effect of that medication. So this is a really good example of what happens when we put those foreign synthetics in our body, even though it had a desired result in the beginning, but she had to get completely off that medication.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're hoping that, and these were popping up like very quickly in the body. Like we're never there, but then they're there. So now, since she's been off the medication for 2 months, they completely stopped.
okay, good.
So now we have to just deal with the side effects of that. But with the Vitaflex too, it's bringing back feeling and energy, and of course adding the oils are helping just that. So that's a really current real world situation that we're dealing with.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it would make me also consider, looking into that where it is on the spinal area. Just keep an eye on that and make sure there's nothing growing there.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if nerve related, I don't know. I'm just in shock at all the stuff that comes out when we start talking about Vitaflex, because our bodies are so in tune. Like, it's crazy how quickly indigestion can go away by just working on your shins and your hands and your feet. And if it works to heal us, it can also kind of give us some precursors into what's going on. So, um, I don't know. God is crazy, crazy cool. Oh, she can't hear. Oops.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Anyone else been practicing Vitaflex and have found things come up that maybe you were working on the hands or feet and then their back started hurting, or anything where they weren't, not necessarily hurting, but um felt shifting? Like, a lot of times I'm wiggly on the massage table when I'm getting a raindrop, when I'm getting my feet done, because my back is already starting to straighten out and adjustments are happening. And then I turn over and my back is already detoxing. I've had a quite a few in the past couple months here that's happened to me. So anyone practicing and seeing things like that happen, or seeing raindrops and using the feet Vitaflex. So we've all done raindrops so far. I know you guys have all done them. Anything come up where the people are already feeling stuff on the feet? Nothing really. Okay. No big deal. Just wondering.
Mm.
Okay. I will keep going. All right. So then um, the next sections are all about kind of like how our notes are organized. Okay. So he has the practical applications of what we use. So the spinal reflexes are on page 45. He has a picture showing that section between his two fingers. It's a smaller section than we thought, than I initially would have put together, but it has to do with that spinal area. You still want to go up the whole area to get the head and the brain and all of that. But the spine area is that smaller portion. Then if you go past the hand and feet charts, you see that the next one is the colon. So it's the same thing in our notes. We go from the spine first, then you go to the colon. And he shows the pathway on that section. And then he also shows, look at his hands, how deeply he's grabbing onto that tibia inside the muscle portion of the bone. And he's really grabbing, because that's a really tough, huge, thick colon. That's our colon point. So if your colon is full and full of mucus and really irritated, it's going to be so tender there. So when you look at that page on page 51, Karen, can you hear us now? Okay. It's really interesting to see how deeply he works. So check that out when you get a chance. I like how he talks about congestion. And if you have colon congestion, Doing this on yourself, sitting down on your bed, doing this to yourself every single day. You're gonna have to have your hand the other way, but finding that indentation point and doing that, it helps so quickly. And using digize, patchouli, peppermint, all those are really helpful. And then if you feel like it, going into that cleansing section, getting rid of the mucus and the stagnation and all the, the stuff that's clogged up in our colon. He even talks about just drinking salt water to help relieve that. But that's one of the big things that causes a lot of other diseases in our body, because we can't eliminate the toxins. So I think that's why he puts the colon as like the number 2 thing besides our spine. Okay. And then he said he's strongly opposed to colonics and enemas, which a lot of people promote colonics and enemas. I've never had one, but I was definitely looking into those when my husband was very, very sick. He ended up not wanting to go through with it because he was just not well. But I'm gonna look into that a little bit more. Then it goes on to the stomach. So we do not have a care section in our notes about the stomach. So if you have issues of the gallbladder, the stomach in general, the liver, the spleen, the sciatica, yes, we have those points in our notes, but there's no section of the care notes that say, here, do this for the liver. Some of the other portions administer to the liver, or they administer to the stomach, like when we do the colon points. So it's interesting in here. The picture's a little old, but you can see his hands right on those spaces. Okay. So find your foot chart, grab a foot, and just practice putting your hands in those spots and just do the Vitaflexing while you're there. Okay. Things like indigestion, constant belching or gas, liver issues, like especially if you're on medications and stuff, people don't realize that the liver is our big filter. So getting the liver reactivated to filter as best its ability would be great. That would be a good thing to start there. Okay, next page 55. We don't talk about the prolapsed organs in our notes either. So prolapsed organs is it's a weird thing to figure out what they're meaning by that. But when we look at our foot chart, it shows our organs, our big intestine, our large intestine, going up, over, down, and then out. Okay, that's what it shows. But a prolapsed intestine is when this intestine actually dips down and then pushes the other organs down with it. And that can be a big source of constipation as well, because the amount of momentum it needs to have to go back up rather than just going straight across is kind of big. It does dip a little bit naturally, but if it's really dipping way deep down and you tend to have lots of gas pains on the right side or gas movement, and then kind of slows down in the middle and you feel heavy and bloated, and then you have a hard time, or the elimination process doesn't happen for you easily, that might be something. And what they show is the back literally being arched up and moving over there. So that's something that you guys could practice. You could even just have a pillow and lean your body back. You wouldn't have to have even anybody lifting your arms up. You could just lean back on a pillow and let your head and your upper body go back. That's really worked for a few clients that I've had. The prolapsed organs looks like a lot of things you're going to have to do with people, have someone help you with. But if you feel, my husband is a I keep talking about him, but he's my best friend. We do everything together. But he literally, when our kids can't go to the bathroom, he kind of palpates the whole entire colon and says, "Oh, I think you have the poop stuck here." And so when you have a kiddo, when the organs are prolapsed, or meaning out of their place, it's usually because they're not having enough energy there. So he pushes it and moves it and helps them see. You can do that on your little kiddos and kind of palpate their stomach. So all of this whole section is all about palpating those organs. It looks kind of scary. These look like photos of dead people, to be honest. This book is very old looking. But I do really enjoy that they give that information, because elimination is one of the huge problems. And constipation, I'm just going to be honest here, it's a huge side effect of like more than 75% of drugs out there. It causes people to be unable to poop, like most medications. I don't know why. I don't know how the body decides to hold on to those things, but I think it's a protection mechanism. They would rather keep it bound up in stool and even in fat cells, things like that, rather than let it be floating in the bloodstream. So it just kind of goes to the big organ, gets eliminated, but then gets stuck there. So we really got to help that get out. Okay. I'm not going to go too deep into that because it's kind of more detailed, but definitely take a look. Then we have, it goes straight to, on page 60, heart and blood pressure controls. So how many people do you know that suffer from high blood pressure?
So many.
So
So many people.
many people. And what happens when you have high triglycerides or high cholesterol? Does anyone know anybody with that? It sometimes goes hand in hand, sometimes it doesn't.
Mhm.
My mom's family has a history of high blood pressure, and she also has a thyroid disorder. So she had a really long time with low thyroid or low blood pressure, and then all of a sudden it went skyrocketing high. So I taught her how to do this, and it's basically just the heart protocol, the heart pump technique. Okay, so you can just do that right on that ring finger, and that can be your source of blood pressure every single day. And your pressure goes along with how quickly you do it. Okay. So if you want the pressure to be lower, that's your heart rate. Sorry, my bad. If you want it to be more consistent, you can actually work on that protocol. When my son's grandma, I'm not related to her. But when she was in the hospital, I was actually on a monitor, and I could see her heart rate and blood pressure all come down by just using peace and calming oil and that technique over a 30-minute period. The nurses had been giving her so many meds, and she was unconscious. She was not there. So I definitely know it wasn't an emotional thing. It was very much a physical thing happening. Also on the foot, we have the heart point on the foot as well. Okay. Okay. Another one, it talks about one here. He has a picture. It says a point to make the heartbeat faster and stronger. So not necessarily something you would use every day, but what about people who are having failure to thrive, or people who are having issues with cardiorespiratory health? That's something that you could use possibly and help it's just right there on the corner of the eye. Okay. It says to raise or lower the diastolic pressure, the reflexes to the kidneys, the adrenal glands, and the rectum are used. These points are found on both the feet and the head. So if you go back one, it's all here. Okay. The feet, the heart. This one's the rectum, behind that point where the skull goes and dips down, the occiput, and then the rectum on both ankles, and then the heart, the left side only, right above the ear. So the diastolic, it's the bottom number, I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's the bottom number. Systolic is on top, diastolic is on bottom, yeah. Okay, to control fainting or heart attacks, start with the heart reflex in the left-handed arm, then switch to the reflex on the head near the eye. All points should be worked until normal conditions return. That's pretty cool. This is creepy. Cool. Creepy cool. There have been many instances of a person pronounced dead being brought back to life while the reflexes of the heart are being worked on. These reflexes work fast to revive a person after drowning. It is better and faster than mouth-to-mouth resuscitation or rhythmic pressure on the lungs. And now my husband said, and he just had his advanced care life support, they don't even teach mouth-to-mouth training anymore. There's no mouth-to-mouth at all. You just keep the heart pumping. And I don't know why. I think it has to do with infection. They're all worried about getting diseases, but maybe it's because they actually didn't see results happening. So first aid, this is teaching our kids and our family first aid, like literally knowing how to help people. Because a lot of times young people don't know how and can't even press the heart hard enough to get it to keep going. All right, eyes and ears. The following control points are for the immediate relief of all headaches, the best results. All of them may be used, but usually only a few are needed. Number 26 and 24. The eye reflexes are on the back of the head. We only knew about in the care notes the ones on the hands and feet, so that's pretty cool, and the ear protocol on the inside. And then we also have eye and ear reflexes on the arm there too. Okay. And then gives you an eye drop recipe on that next page. And then he talks about on page 66 respiratory conditions. So this is something that we all really need to know about because the flu season happens and then we get upper respiratory tract infections and pneumonia. And think back till 2 years ago where everyone and their mother was being put on a ventilator. I mean, we need to know these things. So ventilators are just too scary. So those are the bronchial tubes. We know about that in our notes, right? We've looked at those. And then we also have the lung points again on our feet. We have all of our sinuses under the toes. Okay. And then the last one that they have for us is adjusting the legs. So our hip atlas version, okay? So this is on page 69. It's really hard to see. That picture is not good. You can't see the photo at all. But it gives you specific detailed pinpoints on where to do that Vitaflex maneuver after you've measured the legs. Okay. So if you can't remember where to do it, okay, you just go in here. I like the charts in here. They're really good charts. And then talks about shoulder disorders. How many of you know a person who had a shoulder replacement?
Yes.
Yes, for sure. Arthritis, bursitis, rheumatism, neuritis, similar conditions are all developed in the same source. Incorrect food that produces toxins. Then pain in the shoulder joint, bursitis, are revealed and corrected at the phalangeal joint at the base of the little toes and the finger joint. So the shoulder points are actually right under the toe area. Okay. Now, injuries obviously wouldn't be caused by bad food. Like my mom was pushed down and tore her thing, but they couldn't get anything to heal that. And so now one of her ways that we combat the pain that she has from her replacement is doing this on her hands and on her feet. So I always add that in with my tuning forks and with my oils and all of that kind of thing. Okay, then it talks about painless childbirth and pelvic reflexes. How many people do you know have a pregnant mama in your life? A lot of pregnant people. They're everywhere. So this is a really great one to have. So again, behind the head, the ovary and sciatica, we know that from our notes there. And you can just Vitaflex that area and teach the husbands how to do it. If your midwife or your doulas don't know how to do it, teach them. I had to teach mine. Okay, and then the rectum, the bladder, the uterus, the testicle, sciatica, those are all in that area on the ankle, okay? So any of those issues. Prostate issues for men when they get older, that becomes an issue at times. Bladder issues, groin issues. I read a really interesting study that people who take medications are sometimes at a higher risk, depending on which medications they take, for bladder cancer, because the body is eliminating the toxins, and yet the bladder is holding the toxins in the form of urine. So it's very highly concentrated in the urine, and then they form bladder cancer. And when I asked my uncle who has bladder cancer, he's had it for 5 years. He told me how many medications he was on. And he's like, they never told me these medications could cause bladder cancer. But I asked because he was upset. He was like, what could cause this? No one in our family, God, thank God, we've not had any cancer in our family. And he gets this rare random bladder cancer. But he was on over 17 medications. And he was a parole officer. So he would have to wait hours to urinate. over sometimes 12 plus hours to urinate. So it's crazy. It's crazy what all these things that can happen. Okay. There's a foot adjustment. I'm going to stop pretty soon and just let you guys ask any questions. But as you go through this, I really want you to think about, oh, we didn't really talk much about the face, but think about that the next time when you get into like the tuning forks and stuff, that becomes more popular, and also the emotional books. But think about all these places on the face where that you could also work for people. Think about acne that pops up on the face. What organs might actually be affected? And then the acne is just a sign, oh, we need to get these toxins out. Okay. So that's all I think I have for you guys today. Oh, it talks about the reflexes in the shoulder and the neck on page 80, and then another diagram, and then the ear technique. So that's the big ear technique there. Okay. All right. So what questions do you have? Are you guys understanding a little bit more how awesome this protocol and technique is? Do you feel excited? Any questions? Any
Well, I
comments?
have to comment wise in rereading this book, it's like a mini version of lots of different textbooks in natural health. This is a fantastic resource for people to have, and I would encourage, if you're teaching students or even as you're giving Raindrop, I think this is a great book for people to have. You know, it's not very expensive, and this is an amazing resource. It kind of gives you the abridged function of all the different things in here, and even the color therapy and yoga and the facial charts and the Vitaflex technique, but also how the body works and how to cleanse the body. I mean, this is a really good handbook, I have to say. So, it just reminded me in reading it again, this is something that's easy to carry around too. It's not like a big chunky book that you can't, it weighs a couple of pounds. You could keep this and people can look in there and read it for themselves. So it's a great resource. Easy to understand too, I think.
Great. I agree. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so if you haven't had the chance to read it, maybe throw it in your bag for this week. Maybe when you're sitting around and you have a minute to sit. I know a lot of you are busy, busy people. But it's you don't have to read it in its entirety. You could literally read one paragraph at a time and just pull some information there, and then have that tool. This can also be a useful resource for when you're sick or when you're injured or when people that you know are sick or injured, and you can pull from that as well. Because if you have this little book, like I said at the beginning of class 2 weeks ago, this book is great. It has a whole section on Vitaflex. It doesn't give you a lot of details on how to use it and why. It just tells you, oh yeah, go do that. So this kind of tells you, this book tells you how to do it, why to do it, where to do it, when to do it, how often to do it. And then your oil book can tell you which oils to go along with it. And as we found out in class, you can do it fully alone. You don't have to have oils with it. That's why you can just have this resource. But when you have oils, all of them are taken very, very quickly to the body, right where they need to go almost immediately. So, yeah, I don't have much more for you tonight. I just wanted to make sure kept the momentum going. I'm going to do my very best next week to join in again and just finish up the book with any questions. But I think it might be fun to consider the idea of doing maybe a little group or something, or even a text group or message group about some cleansing. And I just wanted to gauge anyone's interest, if you want to share with me privately, or you can share tonight about just going into some steps, like moving towards that, because I know my body is definitely needing it. And I'm sure all of us are going to be enjoying lots of parties, and it's fun to enjoy. So let's just enjoy that, and then know in the new year we can join in together and do some stuff that we want to do for our bodies and feel good about it, because I'm not going to miss out on having hot cocoa and cookies with my kids. It's just part of our tradition, they might be gluten-free and my kids might all know that there's protein in their hot cocoa, but at least we're still enjoying Still enjoying the times together. But anyway, anyone else have any comments or questions? Any wins this week? Elisa turned in her final exam or her final aromatherapy course, so that was her big win this today. She shared. Anyone else? You guys are quiet tonight. You tired, huh?
I'm just, which class did Lisa take?
Go ahead, share what you did.
It's the 75-hour aromatherapy coaching class that you take when you've done all your other classes for your LSH licensing and the other CRTS and all the ones that you do. You have 3 years to complete this 75-hour aromatherapy course. And it's quite intense, really. And it does take almost the whole 75 hours for sure. So if it's something that you're going to be needing for certification and licensing, I would recommend that you keep a notebook. This is just a hint. Get a binder. Keep a notebook with all your notes in it of what has worked and what hasn't worked and some of the protocols that are in there, because it will really help you out a lot on your final project for that course. And you should have it anyway, just as a resource for yourself to say this was, myself or Susie or whomever you're working with, and just keep that for your records, because going back and looking at that helps to bring more confidence into what you're doing, because we think we're going to remember something, but we don't, or it takes us a while to remember. Doesn't have to be fancy, just jot it down. I keep this already punched paper that I buy because it's so much easier than just to stick in a notebook afterwards. So just as you're studying and earning and learning certifications or whatever your goal is here, then I would say that's a good hint to say, yeah, I'm going to keep a notebook.
Yeah, so
And
you
it
can
could
have
be
it.
for your own personal use.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I also want to say that what came to my mind in the color therapy that's in the book, it can be the answer to white lights or colored lights at Christmas. Now this is funny, because when you look at what color therapy does and why we love to stare at the beautiful colored lights, that we are actually getting an amazing color therapy by viewing that. It just calms us down and it brings back memories. There's nothing wrong with white lights, of course, but once you go in the back and read what it says about color therapy. So you might enjoy or put on a few colored lights on your tree.
Yeah.
So if you do trees or whatever you do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
It is.
So when
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Kate.
Okay,
That's all.
so I'm at the point of getting the spiritual healer's license next in January. But I don't need aroma therapy for that, but I might need it for my tuning forks final, is what I understand.
You'll
But
need
not the
you'll need it within 3 years of it,
Yeah.
of the CRTS license. So yes, you will need it, but they give you some time to complete that because you just are getting your license going and you may not have a clientele, the finances, all of that. So they give you 3 years to get that done. They'll send you a
Okay.
notification if you need it.
All right, thank you.
It's a lot to take on, so just work on what you're working on right now. There's a reason
Exactly.
steps.
There's a
Yeah.
reason they give you 3 years to get it accomplished, because you have a lot of steps to go through to get to that point. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask all of you if you could, our friend Sherry, she's usually here. She messaged me. She found out last week that her husband has a very large tumor on his face, on his lip. And it was started out as a little tiny sore and it grew to this massive, like quarter-sized lesion. And they found out it is tumor or cancerous and it's spread into his neck. And they think it's in the thyroid. It's not in the thyroid, but it is in the lymph nodes. And he had cancer 10 years ago, colon cancer, and healed from that. But from the chemo, lost all of his sense of smell. Almost, can't eat much. So she's just like going through PTSD of all of the craziness of cancer. So if you guys could just keep her in your prayers. She really wanted to be here tonight, but they were out talking to the surgeons all day today. And then a lot of people are also feeling very, very, like what I said, with the deaths just going on. There's so much happening. Just if you could all just, put some extra prayers out there in the world for everybody, because God only, like that's all I can think of is like God is the only one who can help us. And this poor little boy that we knew, he didn't have God in his life, and he just felt it was just, yeah. So anyway, just prayers would be great. So I love you all, and I'm really grateful that you could join me tonight and join Elisa. If you have any questions or comments or things that you want to learn next week, we'll just be finishing up the rest of the details of the book, going through a little bit of color therapy, going through a little bit of the food portion of it, and then making a plan for sometime in January that we'll do some fun cleansing work. Maybe we'll add it into the reset or something. I don't know how we'll do it, but it'll be fun.
Right.
Did Jerry tell you his name
So
was?
What'd you say?
I think we were both talking at the same time.
Go ahead.
I was just asking, did you know what Sherry's husband's name was?
Yeah, it's Larry.
Larry. Okay.
Jerry and Larry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, all right, and I'm praying for all of you guys. I've been in a weird funk, so I'm glad I get to see you. You always give me inspiration. I'm just getting through this last little leg. So next week I'll have many more victory wins. We'll be done with school and be on vacation. So excited. So, good night. Love you all. See you next week.
Good
Love
night,
you too.
everyone.
See you
Good
soon.
night. Bye-bye.